Hey, we are live once again. My name is Steve Jaguar.
And I'm Mike Foster. Yes, and welcome to C9K. That's C9K for your mother, but clusterfuck to your brother. We got a pack show for everybody. Steve is doing tool time. He's doing Pulumi today. OpenSSL has another bug, and we're going to be talking about what makes a good engineer. Yeah, welcome to the show.
Okay. Another episode of your online cloud native newsletter for an impatient world. And how's it going?
It's going well.
We are in the same city.
We are in the same city.
Why is that?
I don't know. You missed me so much.
The car broke down.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, we were supposed to be hanging out together, and my car is in the shop, so I couldn't pick him up from the airport. So we're doing this a la carte. I don't know. We got a great show coming up for you guys. As always, the links are posted below. A lot of stuff, a lot of big spenders, some new Kubernetes features. NIST is getting an overhaul, so we'll be diving into that. But until then, what's new in your world, Steve? What's going on?
Other than I'm back in Toronto and my life is general chaos, all is going well. You know, I think if I were to cast my net way into the future, I'm going to have a busy April because I'm going to be at KubeCon EU, and I'm going to fly from Amsterdam to San Francisco and do RSA because I got to talk accepted there. So I'm going to get an incredible carbon footprint. That's essentially it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, because we're trying to do this bi-weekly, so we might mix it up on you. We're going to do a show next week again, so tune in. And I forget, what am I demoing again?
Cube something.
Cube something. I'll pull it up.
Not Cube Destroyer. Not Cube Destroyer. The other one.
It's a cool new tool that we'll be diving into. So yes, we'll be back next Friday. Tune in, and as always, subscribe, and you'll get notifications. But let's get into the news.
Kube Shark.
Kube Shark.
That's what you're doing next week. All right. First big news article for us. You mentioned it already. NIST plots. This sounds evil when you say it, but plots the biggest ever reform of the cybersecurity framework. Did you get into this? How deep did you dive? Because I actually went all into the concept paper as well.
Didn't get to the concept paper, but did look at what they specifically called out. Measure for measure. Zero trust conundrums. We've been having that conundrum on the show almost every week. And vendor neutral ? That's always a tough one. Like, so many people are going to want to weigh in on this. But what did you take away from it?
I thought it was just like there's some, I guess, previously obvious gaps. The one is they have the 5 precepts that are identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover. All sound good for a framework, and they've added govern, which spreads across all of them, which is observability, I guess, for lack of a better version. And then they're being more, I think I even have it here. Let's see.
It sounds like they're being more prescriptive governance. So saying like, if you're going to be making these changes, it needs to all happen as code and all be signed and all of that. Like it can be sort of a layer on top of everything.
Yeah, and exactly right. It's just kind of an overlay on it. There's another vague section down here talking about supply chain. What a surprise, right?
Of course.
But the redefinition of measurement and assessment. So that's essentially the governance area. Now they are talking about. There was an area about supply chain in here, but I think it's just more like it felt like a tick box. It's got to be in there. This overlay is worth reading. This concept paper because it's really short. Unlike most things that come from this, like the framework itself, which is crazy long.
So last week or 2 weeks ago, we were talking about the letter to OWASP, right? Needing an overhaul. And now NIST is talking about an overhaul. I did remember reading something that they didn't want to be as forceful in their recommendations. Because I think, especially in our line of business, NIST comes out with something, and then you have security teams that are like, we have to be 100% compliant with all of the NIST framework, and here's how we're doing it for auditors, right? Yeah. So I think partially it's to say, there are a lot of security controls now. We don't need to say this is the one size fits all, which as a marketer, I'm extremely happy, because if I, there's a lot of lying and a lot of embellishment. So if we can have a little bit more nuance in the conversation, it's more than welcome.
Ooh, I like that. That sounds like a good hot take. So we'll save that for another show, perhaps.
For sure.
One thing I just wanted to point out here that was a little bit sad for me, and we didn't plan it, was over here in latest posts, I popped up here. One of our favorite cybersecurity news is going away. So the Daily Swig is going to be gone. I don't know when, but it says it's closing down, largely because it's not worth it to them anymore.
Yeah, because they were doing it for free.
They're just doing it for free. And
yeah, it's a good run for a free aggregator of news. No cost for what, 5 years, you said? It's been around?
Yeah, since 2017.
Wow.
They're just saying there's limited business value for a software vendor to provide a service at no cost. I don't know about you, Foster, but I know the feeling. Yeah. All right. So that was sad.
Yeah.
Onward and upward, we have the Kubernetes forensic checkpointing.
So I talked about this 2 weeks ago. This is a new Kubernetes feature I was extremely excited for. Came out, it's an alpha feature in 1.25, and really it's trying to mimic the whole snapshot VM feature. So this is something that is in Cryo now. I think there's a discussion about bringing it to Containerd, but checkpoint/restore in user space. So CRIU is what you'll see. And it's extremely useful. It's going to be built into Kubernetes API, and it basically allows you to just go and take a snapshot of the container, the processes that it's running, and not disrupt the container itself. So there's a lot of excitement for this because it's built into Kubernetes. That means if you're an API security technology, like if you're a Wiz type company, you can use the Kubernetes API to just take a snapshot of it and report back. If you're something like a StackRox or an ACS, like we don't really have to add a lot of functionality. We can just use the built-in features to take a snapshot and then bring it back for audit. So I think it's great for security tools in general moving forward. You can do it without a security tool, but the fact that it's going to be built into Cryo and Containerd and then used via the Kubernetes API, I think is awesome. It just an extra tool for security teams, something that they're used to using. So if you're used to using VMs, it's like kind of just becomes second nature. And again, great tool for analyzing things without having to actually kick out the container, which tends to be, I think, a lot of the general reaction when people are doing enforce in clusters. They just, hey, something's going wrong, like delete the pod, and then it comes back up, and the same thing happens again. Like, no, just take a snapshot, look at the network, the connections. Okay, it's safe. Nothing's going to happen. Maybe like scale the resource down. You don't necessarily need to kick it off. So there's a lot of other ways you can go about processing anomalous activity.
Yeah, I like that.
Mouthful.
So if you've got something, if you establish remote code execution inside your container and someone's downloading I guess the cliche is a Bitcoin or Monero miner or something like that, right? And you're like, they don't expect to get much out of it, but if you can snapshot the container, send it away, and then pop it into a sandbox before you, because I mean, even there's various security tools. I think even StackRox included. Not that anybody ever turns it on, but that will just kill a container if it goes weird.
Yeah.
And then Kubernetes will bring it back up, and at least you've got retention of resiliency, let's say. But it's like to not know what happened.
Yeah, and that's always the issue, right? Like, let's say you have enforce, it kills the pod, and then you get a notification Splunk that somebody got killed. Instead, what you could do is you could set a workflow where, hey, if there is an apt-get or a yum that's run in specific containers, snapshot it, put it in a list, and then when your security team gets in the morning, they see the 4 or 5 that were there. They can go and report on it, and they can say, oh yeah, a developer was working in production doing something stupid. We can go after that person. Or maybe it's behavior that's supposed to happen in that container, and you can mark it off as, yeah, this is what's supposed to happen. We're going to watch that one just in case, because it's high risk, but we're not going to shut down that workload, right? So there's a lot of automation that can be built around it as well.
Yeah, it's super cool. You can obviously tell because all the examples, it's written by somebody from Red Hat. Yeah. All the examples are Cryo. It's like, it's good though.
Okay, yeah, and this is the thing when Red Hat says we contribute the most to Kubernetes, and we had for the last couple of years. everybody benefits from this. Like every single security tool is going to use it, even though we developed it in-house. So it's somewhat got to pat myself on our Red Hat team.
Look at pat yourself.
I was like, I don't know.
So we
Do
got involved.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Just the workflow of they create it, they open source it. It's not in container D yet, right? So they just put it in cryo and then said, hey, if you want to put that feature in, go ahead. So I think that the politics of it is interesting. I'll say that.
Yeah, I think it's going to become, it's too powerful and too useful to not become normalized. Awesome. Yeah.
What we got next?
Good contribution. We are looking at lessons learned from top cloud outages. One of which is near and dear to your heart. This is Thousand Eyes. Cisco did an analysis of the top 5, and I'm just going straight down to where they are listed. I think it's chronological as well. Yeah. So Twitter went down, and explains Twitter went down after a Russian internet satellite communications provider announced one of Twitter's prefixes and black hole traffic as a result. It's like, whoop. That's a better view. Yeah, I looked at lessons learned. You know, your company might have resource public key infrastructure implemented to fend off border gateway protocol. That's what it stands for, right? BGP. Yep. Your telco won't. Like, so it's just talking about selecting ISPs. And I'll let you comment on this second one.
Oh yeah, the Rogers one supposed to go to a concert. Just the entire country it felt like it came to a halt. People were hanging out outside Starbucks trying to get Wi-Fi. There are 2 failures on this one. One is that there was no failover process in Canada. So if your telco goes down, you should fail over to another telco. That was not mandated by the Canadian government. It is in the US. So basically, if Verizon goes down, you get swapped over to the nearest telco, and then it's up to Verizon and the other telco to figure out how to pay each other for the down service, which is really interesting, right? So now that's mandated. Within like 2 days, it passed in the House of Commons in Canada after this happened. So 1, a political failure, and then 2, yeah, I do not understand how an internal routing error caused the entire network to crash. It's still just withdrew all its prefixes. I don't know what happened. There was no segmentation of this, but that one blew my mind. The fact that the entire country went down on the Rogers network was crazy. Yeah,
that single point of failure a little bit there. That's pretty horrible.
Yeah.
But I like the Thousand Eyes lesson comment about, like, okay, so you did bad things happen, but what about things like hospitals and banking and critical infrastructure? Like that's the argument right there for having failover. It's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. Just 911 calls alone, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's nuts. Next one, Google, the outage affected Google search and Google Maps. Oh my God. Suddenly everyone was just sitting on the road with no actual physical maps anymore. Nothing was working. But only lasted 16 minutes. Not too bad, I guess. Not as bad as Rogers. But interesting that the Thousand Eyes lessons learned. Important to monitor not just your application front ends, but also the performance critical dependencies that power your app. No kidding. When I read through this the first time, I actually thought some of the lessons learned were a little bit like no shit Sherlock, kind of like obvious. How did this go wrong? Yeah. But it's like, I don't know, still good that they pointed out, because
I mean, I'm sure the engineers are on it. They just might not have dealt with a scale, or maybe they upgrade too fast, or, you know, there's so much of like one part that depends on the other that you just overlook. But
yeah, exactly.
The British Airways one, I think there's a couple. There's an Airways outage in the US too. I forget what it was. It wasn't Spirit Airlines, but it was something like that.
I don't know. I remember the British Airlines one because it's Heathrow. That's like where I probably spend an unfortunate amount of my time.
True.
But yeah, application servers. Essentially, this is another single point of failure scenario. I don't know. Do they learn? Sometimes they don't. But let's hope that they have. Grounded the entire fleet, thousands. And then I had the worst thing about it is I remember when this happened, every news, BBC just had people who couldn't go on their holiday. This was a tragedy. But anyway, I didn't get affected directly because I wasn't flying anywhere that day. Yay.
Yeah, the Zoom one is a little Less,
It's kind of
it's
hilarious.
impactful, but less impactful. Brief outage impacted global users who couldn't log in or join meetings. The HTTP errors indicated potential CDN issues. I read this one. And I thought it wasn't that big, but then everything's going electronic now. So imagine you have like law processes. You're going into court. You're doing it on a Zoom call, and that goes down, and then it's dragged out for months, and that costs a ton of money. And then I've realized that the more you put onto infrastructure like that, also like the more responsibility is going to get pushed to these companies for damages too. It's like if you're a law company, or let's say you're a government, and you farm out your services to Zoom to say, hey, we want to go all electronic. Well, then what happens when Zoom goes down? Do they have to pay the Canadian government or something like that for the service? Who pays the lawyers when things get delayed? Like that.
Yeah.
It comes with its own
probably
issues, right?
Yeah, and you probably blindly clicked the terms and conditions that said you could do nothing against Zoom.
Yeah, so then I just got to go shell more money to my lawyer if things get delayed an extra couple months. Yeah, it's a tough process. I understand why people like showing up in person.
Well, yeah, occasionally, yeah. I mean, from my perspective, I had a pretty quiet day on September 15th. It's awesome.
Very true. Yeah, but let us know if anything impacted you. I know there's another airways that went down in the US. There's always something. Oh, Michael Mann's late. It's all right. We forgive you. Welcome to the show.
Okay.
All right. Lessons learned is done. I think you wanted to talk about cloudsec. There's a CFP or something going on.
Yeah. Well, just because this thing is an anomaly to me. I think I just say Forward cloudsec. Forward cloudsec is like a tiny little. It's like B-sides.
Mm-hmm.
It's like B-sides, but for AWS Reinforce. So Reinforce happens 2 days before. It used to be just a day before cloudsec would kick off. And if you go back and you go to YouTube and just look up Forward cloudsec, the talks are always really good. It's really not that Reinforce isn't good. We've both been to Reinforce.
Yeah, it's very partner heavy.
It's a little. It can be a little salesy. Whereas cloudsec, I tried to get in last year and I didn't get in, and I can get a ticket. And I thought, oh, that's weird. So this time, tickets went on sale at 5 p.m. my time in the UK, noon for you. And I was like, it was like I was buying. Somebody said it's like buying Taylor Swift tickets, just refreshing. And then I had a ticket, and it was only $100, so I got it. If I expense it doesn't really matter because that's not very expensive, right? And then my colleague Matt was doing the same thing. He didn't get a ticket because it was sold out. And it was like, what?
Just funny because it happened to Matt. I hope he's watching.
Yes. So there's only 350 tickets. It's not that. And yet,
I mean, you can see why if people like the content, it's worth the price, right?
Yeah. And if you want to sponsor as a sponsor, you bid. You can't pay. You have to say, I want to sponsor you. Cool. And then you have to say, this is how amazing our sponsorship. This is what we're going to bring. And so they choose, because the 350 they get in tend to be of the influencer type. So it's such a strange, I think it's a real anomaly as a conference.
Yeah, most of the time the conferences want to expand, and so they like up the price and they say, somebody come and meet it, and then they'll negotiate with you, and that process is kind of annoying. Yeah. Anyways, it's kind of it's the luxury brand of security conferences. I don't know.
It kind of feels like it, but it's cheap to get in for the actual practitioner.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. Then it's more about influence. This is the Instagram influencers of the tech community.
Yeah,
in a weird way. It's like one of those parties from Silicon Valley, like the first season. You walk around, there's 300 people. Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, so it's cool anyway. So I just thought I'd call it out because it was such a strange experience. All right, so last one from the news.
Yes, last one from the news, and then hot take.
All right, looking forward to that. The difference between good and great engineers. This is an article that came to me via our engineering team, the Bridge Group people who work on open source. And I think it was the actual person who runs engineering said, this is great. Like, read it before we do hiring. Exceptional engineers, ambitions and determined. Some of it's obvious.
Growth mindset, yeah.
Growth mindset. I love habitually simplify.
Yeah.
Like there was an example that happened internally recently where there was a comment on a bit of open source that got written that was essentially a linear do this exit.
Mm-hmm.
but it was like it was written in object-oriented Go, and we're like, okay, this just could have been a linear.
Yeah.
Do this, do this, do this. It didn't need to have objects passing data between them like throughout. We're like, this is the exact opposite of the habitually simplified characteristic.
It's a great quote by Martin Fowler there. Any fool can write code that a computer can understand. Good programmers write code that humans can understand.
Yes.
Spot on.
Yep, love it. You can debug anything quickly? Well, that'd be nice to have, wouldn't it?
I was going to say part of that number 2 also is, let's say you have a lived experience, or you're simplifying things in your own life, and somebody comes and says, why do you do this? And you can't explain the habit that you have. You're like, well, after years and years of doing something, I've realized this is like the quickest way to clean dishes or something like that for me because of this. And it's like, oh, yeah. Okay. And then they can take it and run with it. Now do that with code. It's like, oh, well, I've realized that these are the changes I need to make. Here's all the documentation to why I made it. Then the next engineer can use that. And it's a compounding effect, right? So it's why that simplify and explanation matters so much.
Yeah, I think there are engineers who think they're good at simplifying because they think that fewer lines of code means it's simple, but actually they tend to reduce things into very idiosyncratic. Like we have a Python.
Their process of thinking, sort of thing.
Their process of thinking of like, I write code that has very simple logic, and then it'll get rewritten by engineers into this complicated one-liner. Like you can create regexes that are insane, right? Yeah. And it's like, but no one's going to look at it at a glance and know what it actually does anymore. It's just small. That's not always small's not always simple, I suppose. Is what That's a great article. You had another before the show. You mentioned another version, another.
Yeah. So if anybody wants to check it out, the links are obviously always in the description. There's 6 ones there. It's very, I don't want to say narcissistic. It's just looking at what the engineer needs to do. And my point is, I think a good engineer also takes in requirements, understands how other people think, and then can modify it for that audience, right? If I write code, you might have a different way of thinking. I can also take it, I can teach it to you because I fully understand the changes that I've made, instead of, and sometimes that comes from trial and error. Sometimes you're just throwing stuff at the wall and you figure it works. You're like, oh, why did that work? But you're just habitually asking questions and trying to make sense of it. I think that is the thought process. And that, like, I think so much of when you go to a college or university or school, it's teaching you that thought process, not necessarily the details, right? But it's saying, hey, you have an issue. What are the boundaries? How to go about it? That's really what gets instilled. And so, yeah, I think it's spot on. I think they added the human touch very well. Very uplifting as we go into this not so uplifting hot take. Spicy. Yes. So this hot take comes to you courtesy of some painful phone calls with customers. And my hot take is, your questions and how you ask them about a vendor will tell me how serious you are in your day-to-day life with work about security, and like, how good are you as a security practitioner? And I'll give you an example.
Yeah. Okay. You're going to have to clarify this one.
Okay. So when you're doing an analysis of vendors or products, you tend to ask the things that security teams will do. Compliance standards. Does it manage these features? How does it help? But typically you have a use case in your mind. It's, hey, we already have a security product. What does yours do that does it better? Can you help our workflow? Can you streamline? Can you make this simple? If I get on a call and you're asking, do you have AI, ML? Can you do some sort of like, if this, then that? And I'm, okay, like, what's the use case? And you don't really have a follow-up. I just think that you are a mouthpiece and you want to make your life easier, because the security team's job, your job, is to say, we're doing X, I need to make it hardened and I need to make it more secure. And I need to be efficient. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be efficient at your job. Sometimes sitting there while you're doing an upgrade and manually watching it, even though it's annoying, is better for the DevOps and developer team than it is to automatically do it for you and cause an outage that hurts them. Like, you are sort of the parent / protector of your environment. Your job is not necessarily to simplify your job. Your job is to make sure everybody else's job is simplified. It's thankless, but people who understand that, I immediately am like, you're socially, I feel like you're a really good security practitioner. You understand what is being asked of you in the job. And you're kind of, it's a little bit different. It's almost like a somewhat of a selfish question versus somewhat of a helpful and useful question. Make sense?
Oh, it does actually. The last subject of our what makes a good engineer, that segued nice right into your hot take, because you're requesting to have a bit of empathy for the end goal and the users of
And
whatever it is
I
you're
want
asking
Michael Mann
for.
or Geek Master to call me out. Am I wrong here? Anyways, let me know in the chat, and then we're getting into the crazy stuff.
So,
sorry, I'm turning it over here, Steve. We're rambling.
oh, we are rambling. All right, we got to get going.
Yeah.
This. I saw this. I didn't understand why DevOps for Babies paperback. Really? We need this, do we? I don't.
I feel like this has got to be a gag gift, right? This is something that you give to somebody in the office, and you say, "Hey, just so you know, like you got to get better at your job here."
Is that really what it's for?
It's got to be, right?
It's got to be. It's free to get it on the Kindle. That's because you don't have any of the impact.
Well, yeah, with Kindle
of handing it. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
You don't get to hand it to, let's say, Michael Mann and say, "Look, Michael.
Yeah.
I finally found a book that caters to you."
Yeah, that's too funny. DevOps Babies. All right, well, you know what you're getting for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh God. All right.
What we got next? Yeah, this is your baby.
Again, is it time to say goodbye? Because I'm a LastPass person, and I always defend it. Is it time to say goodbye? It's like, no user data was compromised. And it is again. This came out. The hack actually was the same second one. I think we even reported on the show back in December. What makes it different is just that LastPass released the full description of what happened and what they're doing to counteract it. Right? Like, this is what we've done different. They even say we assisted the DevOps engineer with hardening the security of their home network and personal resources. Like, it was like one person got special training. I guess.
Yeah.
Because it was a phishing attack. And so they ended up getting a developer's master password. But just because you have one developer's master password, because you fished it out of them, including the MFA that they used, doesn't mean you have access to anything else.
Yep.
So it's just, okay, somebody got in. So I'm still sticking with LastPass. That's true.
There it is. I was wondering. I was sitting here like going to ask the question. Was he going to address it? Yeah, he's still LastPass guy.
That's still LastPass. Yeah.
Let me know when you want to jump on the 1Password train. Be a true Canadian.
Okay. Well, I'm sure.
You're in Toronto now.
That's true. Maybe I should. I always just change my password manager to the one that is created in the country I'm sitting in at the moment. Maybe not.
Sad. I think we have one last one. Is it manifest.io?
This made me laugh. You added this.
Yeah, just the fact that basically the Kubernetes API was so slow, the web page to go and pull this, that somebody just said, okay, well, I'm just going to pull it, index it. Here you go. Search through it. Just because going through and clicking on the Kubernetes website was such a pain that
it is.
That here. Yeah, and he just put it for free. And so I thought it was hilarious because never underestimate an engineer's ability to complicate the life for themselves because you piss them off with one little thing, right? It's like, wait, this is taking 10 extra seconds in my life. Okay, well, I'm going to spend a couple hours setting up this website just as a big F you to whoever set up the original website.
Yeah. And actually, before the show, I was clicking through it going, this is pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
I hope he maintains it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So whoever did this, I'm sorry, I'm not giving you a shout out, but I'll try to find it for next show. Or as always, you can follow the links. I'm sure they put in a little personal, although I didn't see their viewed in GitHub. There you go. There's a made with love.
By Apollorian, this person. There we go.
There you go. Joey Stout. I love Kubernetes. Loves Kubernetes so much that he does this for you. Yeah. What a guy.
That's cool.
Yeah. What a guy. All right. What do we got next? We got some big spenders, right? We got a couple of them.
Let's do it. Number one.
We missed a big one 2 weeks ago.
I've been kicked out. Hold on.
I'll bring you back. No, never mind. You got
I
it.
got Sumo Logic, February 9th. Yeah, we should have had this in the last show. Acquired by Francisco Partners for 1.7 billion, which is only $12.05 per share.
They've been around a while.
They have been around a while, but it blew my mind that they were public in the first place. Like, I don't even know when that happened, because it's largely considered a struggle to IPO and go public. And for what is essentially a Splunk competitor to actually be a publicly traded company is like, what? Really?
Yeah.
When did that? How did I miss that?
I think the market for IPO has changed. Just it's a lot easier to IPO now than it was in the old days. Which means that since the barrier is so low to get extra cash, now it also means that some companies can go through DEF knowing that that's an option that they can easily, and like there's so much knowledge around IPOing now. Whereas imagine trying to do this in the early 2000s. It's going to take a year and a half, probably. It's going to be a long, arduous process. You're going to be cash strapped during that time. So just Sumo Logic's the first. I think you're going to see a lot of other platforms, maybe the Palos, the Aquas, the Wiz, like those types of companies that if they're not getting bought out, that's the path they're going to follow.
But they're gone. They were public, but now they're private again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, because it seems to be there's whispers that this is going to happen to Suse too. Is there's so much free money come COVID that it made sense to IPO, and you could IPO in 6 months. So it's like, do it, get a bunch of cash, and now you're seeing the tech stocks drop, and everybody has to actually make their money. And so it's like, how do I get cash in a cash-strapped world? Well, private equity. So
there you go.
And at least they can kind of weather out, because these companies, they think 3 to 5 years, right? So they're looking around saying there's going to be not a lot of free flowing cash in the stock market in the next 3 years. We need to weather the storm here. Private equity is the way to go. I think that makes sense.
Yeah. Sounds like a reasonable theory.
Anyways, 1.7, right. Good for that.
In opposite news, Akamai to acquire cloud storage technology company Ondat, formerly known as Storage OS. Several of our associates and friends working there, so big success for them to come up with an exit strategy for that. That's been working on that for a while.
Yeah, congrats. Storage has always still been a pain in the ass, especially on Kubernetes. So kind of curious to see how it gets integrated into the portfolio.
Yes.
Is there any talk of price?
No.
That'll probably come out in a couple months, possibly.
Yes. I would imagine something like that will come out. I haven't yet to speak to any of the people who work there. Like, I mean, Alex is going to be joining Akamai as Alex is an amazing engineer, like as a founder. So that'll be certainly a huge asset. I don't know who else that we know. I know a bunch of people who work there are going to keep going with Akamai. But watch the space as we find more things out about what it's worth, what's happening. I don't know. Sounds cool.
Congrats. Yeah. That's a big one.
That's a biggie.
And then we have our last one. This one is the valuation is insane, but
Wiz raises $300 million for their 6 p.m. CNAP. What are they saying they're worth now?
I want to say it was like 10 billion. Something ridiculous. Yeah, they raised 300 million, and what are they evaluated at? 19.3 billion. Oh no, sorry. Valued
by 2027.
That's the CNAP market. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's 10 billion I saw in a different article.
It was what they're evaluated at. I think I just can't believe that they can even write their CNAP platform in there. Like, they have no runtime. They're all APIs. How can you claim your CNAP?
Well, you can say whatever you want.
Yeah, like it's just damn. Well, it's tune in next week for another hot take on this stuff. I'm just gonna pull this up as the segue. Crazy.
Say whatever the hell you want.
I also think so Wiz, I believe, hit 100 million in ARR last year, and they've been around since 2020, 2019. That is fast, right? Like, did I get lost, or did we lose Steve? Who do we lose? I think we lost Steve. So I'm just going to keep talking. But it's crazy how fast that they've grown. And We need to refresh. Anybody in the comments? Tell me who we lost. Bye, Steve. Yeah, okay. Thanks, Geek. This is what happens. My car breaks down, his internet breaks down. But yeah, so the whole Wiz thing, I think when they're looking at models and growth, they're looking at cloud growth and they're saying, look at all the cloud adoption. And Wiz just went right after that market. They said, we're not dealing with runtime. We're not dealing with managing kernel services and security platforms. We're just going to go after the APIs and do all our changes in there. And that way, it's a lot easier to manage the product too, from an engineering standpoint, to just say, we're doing all of our feature growth, build the whole platform into the APIs. It's a lot easier that way. So that makes sense. I think that's why Wiz is growth there. I also see some of the other container and security platforms going that way. They're starting to use the APIs for all their enforcement mechanisms. I think it makes sense. Something like eBPF, right? Get away from the kernels, move into eBPF for all that rich information. APIs are the same thing in security and cloud space. So we'll see if Steve pops back on. Until then, I'm just going to go to the CV because this is the one I put in, but it's cookie time.
Now, what starts with the letter C?
Yes, it's cookie time. OpenSSL version 2, V2. Just kidding. It's not that serious. I pulled this one from SUSE, but Red Hat has their notification up. OpenSSL also has the CV public. It is not as serious as the one in December. It's very low impact. It's rated as 7.4. As you can see, so like the NVD, the National Vulnerability Database, if I scroll down here, they always have their score. And then depending on if you're Red Hat or your SUSE or whoever it is, you'll say your impact score. So I think it is interesting to call that out, that some things, if they're in a specific Linux version, are not as impactful because of the security controls that are in there. This is one that it doesn't really matter what the security controls are. Num. Cookie time. And it's, from my understanding about it, if I can scroll up, basically you have an X400 address. That's typically like an email or a name, and it's misinterpreting it. It's supposed to say it as a string, but it's misinterpreting it as a type. And that means you can pass some other malicious things through there. It really only matters though if the underlying structure is like generating its own certificates. If that makes sense, like if you're doing a fetch for something, because then you'll use it to go and fetch and pull like a list of the domains and then use it to get into the system. It's very like low impact. So it's exploitable, but only with a specific configuration can you really take advantage of it, if that makes sense. Cool. So yeah, don't worry. Oh, we just clickbait headline, OpenSSL again. Gotcha. All right. Well, we're supposed to go to tool time, and Steve is supposed to do Pulumi. So I'm just going to delay for another 2 minutes, chat with you, and give him 2 minutes to come back in. Would not be surprised if he pulled the Wi-Fi out on himself. All right. Do you know what time it is?
Does everybody know what time it is?
Oh my gosh. He said his laptop died. That is too funny. All right. Well, I'll give the Pulumi background while he comes back in, if you guys don't mind hanging out here for a while. Has anybody used Pulumi? I'm kind of curious. I see, yeah, DSO's in there. Geek. Are you guys Pulumi fans? Nope. No. Should have got a PC. Yeah. He did not plug in his Mac, and the Mac on StreamYard, it chews through battery. I have mine plugged in all the time. All right. So here's Pulumi's pitch. And as this thing spazzes out in here with AWS and Jenkins. So ship infrastructure faster. Pulumi, so you think about Ansible, you think about Terraform. Pulumi is up there in that space, but it's more Python focused. It's not declarative necessarily by nature. It does allow you to have unique rules in the way that you set things up. M1 is so much better than Intel Max. I agree. DSO, we gotta upgrade Steve. I don't know what he's doing. We gotta get him on the newer versions. So yeah, it is open source. You can try it out for free. Every cloud, every language, every architecture, every engineer. I think that is sort of the advantage. Also, what is going on with this website that's spazzing out like that? That is a weird one. Import join into your cloud infrastructure. So it is kind of nice if you're used to Python. I think some of the advantages are You can take, oh, there's Stevie's back. You can take Python engineers, one of the most known code languages in the world, and you can move them over to infrastructure. So there's a lot more applicability language-wise to that. You don't have to deal with all these Terraform modules. So got in 3 stars. I'm not sure what you're writing there, but you got muted. And yeah, so I think there's some strengths to it. Steve is there he is. He's back. He's all charged up. I was giving everyone an introduction into Pulumi, so I'm glad you made it back.
Well, depends how you look at it. My laptop is just frozen, so that's why I'm back by a phone.
Oh, back by a phone. Okay.
So
Download
that's
open. So DSO is saying it's not free, but it's funny because it's saying download open source. There is an open source Pulumi version, right? That's free.
I'm using it.
Yeah. Okay. I was kind of curious for that.
There's a free premium version.
Gotcha. Free for an individual. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then as soon as you get into any sort of multi-user setup, then you're getting whacked.
You are. Yeah. Just 2 seconds. Now I had to hard kill my laptop. I just didn't want to leave you sitting here on your own. Because I know what that's like.
Yeah, that's true. Touche. So I was just telling them about Pulumi, some of the strengths being Python as the language for use. It is not, I don't want to say it's declarative. Like it's not declarative like Terraform, but it is.
So let me give you my Pulumi hot take,
Right.
which would be, I'll start with the conclusions, and let's hope I can get the laptop back up and show you what I mean by it before, the earth melts down here, because I'm having to reboot. It is declarative in a way because it produces something that has state,
Okay.
but you're writing it in a Turing-complete language, and the language breadth is crazy because it does C#, Go,
Yeah.
TypeScript, Python, and for no reason I could possibly comprehend, YAML. Because
So it exports it all into these different languages. But what type of language are you writing it in?
you're writing it in those languages. You're writing it in TypeScript.
Oh, okay.
Or I wrote it in Python because that's
Gotcha. I thought it was Python anyways. Yeah. So that's interesting. So you can write it in any language and it will take it and spit out the infrastructure.
Yeah, essentially so if you create, essentially you import Pulumi, for example, at the top of your, just giving you updates, my laptop has rebooted.
That's okay. I actually have an example here ready to go. Yeah.
You did one too?
No. This is just on from the website, so you can see. So write infrastructure code faster. They have it up here. You can basically write TypeScript, Python, Go, C#, Java, and then YAML. Yeah, just cause.
Why?
Yeah, why? So that's pretty interesting. So it does all that, and then is there any issues with conversion, or like how do you vet that you're writing it properly? You have 6 different languages. Does that get confusing? If you have multiple people on a team, do they write in different languages and it all spits out the same? What's the workflow like?
So it's actually really, this is what I wanted to demo. And this it's all blowing up in my face. You install in my experience, you install it, you type Pulumi new, and it says, what do you want? What's your destination? What blew my mind is that the destination list is massive. Like it does like Alibaba Cloud, it does DigitalOcean, it does Sivo, it does AWS, of course, in the big 3. It does everything. And then you go, okay, I want this. Well, what language is it? I like Python. So I just did AWS Python, and it spins away. I wasn't going to do that bit live because it actually takes about 10 minutes while it thinks about things. And it's...
Steve's trying to multitask right now.
I am.
You can see him booting up. The wheel is spinning in his head right there.
Well, I just rebooted my laptop, and yet it didn't actually reboot. It's still freaking out. Like I hard killed it, and it didn't do it.
M1 Mac. Would you say you ran out of juice?
I don't think I did.
Huh.
Anyway.
Apple failing us.
Yeah, it is. This laptop is a pile of garbage. Let me make that clear. It gives you a basic main.python that just says import Pulumi, from Pulumi import S3, and from S3 you can say new object called S3, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
You instantiate it. The act of instantiating the object is what creates an S3 bucket. So then you've got your program, you write it, you do Pulumi up. It's a little like terraforming, and it runs the code, but then goes and creates the bucket for you.
Okay.
It also then, by default, tells the Pulumi SaaS product and sends the state to the SaaS product.
Interesting. Okay.
So you, instead of like a Terraform,
The state
plan,
files are always annoying. Yeah, in Terraform.
so the state is maintained by the SaaS by default. You
Okay.
you can be specific. You could say, actually don't want to do that. I want to put my state in an S3 bucket somewhere else. You can maintain it independently, and that's fine. You don't have to use the SaaS product, but it does try and use it by default.
Yeah. So what happens if you change the state in the SaaS product?
If you change the state in the SaaS product, it affects the cloud.
Okay. So it will go and automatically change it. It'll do that for you.
It'll do those things for you. And same on the command. The command line is just a representation of this. I think really you're just talking to the SaaS product, and it's doing the work.
Okay.
The problem I ran into is, hold on, logging in, is that if you change the state of the cloud, Pulumi gets super confused.
Yeah, because how is it going to go make that change? What's the code to go and make that change and enforce it? Yeah.
It doesn't report backwards. It doesn't report drift. It doesn't. It's not like CloudFormation where it has that kind of built in, right? So it's not doing that. It didn't do that. What was cool, it was that within, I don't know, it took me about 5 minutes to deploy a static website in an S3 bucket that was exposed and had a URL. Like in 5 lines of code.
Pretty good.
So, and it was like, that's pretty cool. Like if you wanted to just build static websites, it does have, it says it has integrations with all the CI tools, but really all it's doing is providing scripts and workflows that plug in and that just run what you would run on the command line.
Yeah.
It's not earth shattering.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, for people that are watching, I'm just putting the pricing up at the back. I had one funny thing: up to 10 members, 5 concurrent updates. Well, they're doing credits. What's the deal with that? Is it like a certain amount of runs is a credit? Do you know?
Is it resources? I think though.
What is a Pulumi credit? Managing one resource for 1 hour. So each credit costs 0.0005. For billing purposes, we can't count any that's declared program. Basically, if you're managing an S3 bucket and Pulumi is managing it for a day, it's going to be 24 credits because it's a credit an hour.
Right.
So $1 for 2,000 credits for the team. It depends on how many resources. Interesting strategy, because it's not going after, like, let's say a resource is an IAM role. Is that considered a resource in Amazon? Right? Like you can see, or serverless, or like a network connection. Like you can see how some, like an S3 bucket, you're like, oh, well, the pricing makes sense. But how they get you is like, as soon as you start scaling and you have like all these users and all of these sub programs to connect everything together in AWS, that bill is going to get high and pricey. Right?
Totally. Well, so
also, last thing before you get into this, I love this business critical private Slack channel, which is, it's honestly really useful, but also kind of funny.
So the issue that I saw when I was trying to learn about this, there was a guy who did a YouTube video that just said Terraform versus Pulumi, and it was, all he did was rant about Pulumi. He didn't actually do a comparison at all.
Okay.
He just sat there saying it sucks because from a coder's perspective, yeah, it's great because you're in a language and you want to run your stuff in that cloud, and you can add essentially an SDK that will build cloud infrastructure so that you can put your thing there.
Yeah.
But if you're using Pulumi, you're probably not the person who should be responsible for that cloud infrastructure in the first place. If this is what you think you should be doing, Terraform does have a state. It is truly declarative.
Yeah.
As opposed to the danger of being able to write actually full logic and loops, so that while looking at the code, we talked about this earlier, good engineers, you can't tell what the result will be.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is Pulumi just added a thing called a plan, and you can do Pulumi preview, save plan, and it'll output JSON. And the JSON is declarative. And you can see everything. You can see all of the different, all the different states. It looks like Terraform a little bit. And that is a good way of seeing what you're about to create. You can even do.
I was going to say, you can just apply that plan. Let's say all your infrastructure goes
and then you
down.
can apply the plan.
You can just apply the plan again, right? And it'll bring it back
right.
up. Okay.
Right. So if you could do an action that creates a plan, and then you could even, now the reason I was looking into this is because we were going to see if we could write checkoff rules and port our Terraform rules over to the plan. And the answer is yes. But that's on hold because the next question was, does anybody care? But you could then create plans that you could revision control and have people come look at and even review before you deploy them. And then not bad, you get the advantages of a language, but you get the potential security benefits of creating a plan that can be reviewed.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the plan allows the security tool to go and iterate over it, tell you what's wrong, make suggestions, especially if you check it into any sort of source code material. If you have a plan and you do something like that, obviously with care. But yeah, there's a massive strength in that. It is somewhat interesting while you're almost, hopefully you're close to finishing up, because I'm kind of excited to see this live, to see sort of consolidation on workflows. Because like Terraform was the first sort of infrastructure as code. Although Terraform and Ansible, I'd say, better together story. They both have their strengths and weaknesses. And then it's kind of hard for something like Pulumi to break in there and, reinvent the wheel. So it's like, it's got some bonuses. I think that the pitch of bring any code and create infrastructure, I think is awesome. But now it's starting to consolidate and say, well, maybe if we at least adopt some of the decisions that the other products have, the workflow will be better. Because I think everybody, even Ansible generates a plan as to like what's going to happen, right? You can go and check over all your resources and see what's going to be created. So I think if you're talking about infrastructure, that's a must now. Like you can't be an infrastructure tool if you don't have that. Right?
You are correct.
Steve, he's almost there.
I'm almost there.
I was going to say, I'll give you 2 more minutes because I have one other thing that I want to show you. We're going to be doing this for tool time next week. KubeShark. This is pretty cool. I think it's going to be awesome because I'm going to go throw it in OpenShift clusters so you can see all of the connections. The API traffic viewer for Kubernetes. Very cool. Again, we'll be demoing this live next Friday. We'll be back next week. Pretty easy to deploy. Look at that. KubeShark traffic. It's got some cool dashboards. We love a good visual Kubernetes dashboard. Incident investigation, traffic forensics. You don't get this stuff. And it's pretty simple. I think this is all open source. There's no paid product yet. You can install it pretty quickly. So if you want to test it out, give us your thoughts for next Friday. Let us know. I promise my laptop will be plugged in. Although I do need a new Mac because I tried to run Premiere Pro on this thing last night and it was yelling at me. Did not like it.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what's going on with my Mac. It's just freaking out. It's been rebooted and now it's like the mouse. I mean, I move the mouse and then it follows slowly afterwards.
Yeah.
It just doesn't want to do it.
A lot of processes going on at once, I guess.
Yeah, but I did the whole demo 10 minutes before we started the show just to make sure it was fine. And then halfway through the show, it just decided to freak out. And I'm trying to figure out like what tab did I open that is crypto mining on my laptop at the moment. Really, that's what it's acting like. And it's like I just ran a top.
Yeah.
Just to see like what's actually running in a console, and the top doesn't put the list up. It's like 100%, 20,000% of my CPU is being eaten by something right now, even though I rebooted. It's very weird, making for a very bad demo. I may have to defer the demo to a future.
All right, Pulumi and KubeShark next week. Hey, yeah, DSO's hacked. There you go. Yeah, you imagine that would be an awesome clip for the interweb. Security talk show host gets hacked live on air.
It could be. Yeah, that might That might be what's going on. It's just I'm staring at a blank screen.
Yeah. I warned you about those searches, Steve. I warned you.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's
giving up?
I'm giving up. This is not going to work.
Okay.
I don't know why. It just decided halfway through the show that it didn't want to be.
The
a
demo
computer.
gods are not favorable to Steve when he's in Toronto.
Yeah. Did I screw it up?
We've had a lot of things break down. I had a flat tire between Ottawa and Mount Tremblant on Sunday. My car has been in the shop, had to go back in. Steve's laptop's broken.
It's just dead. I don't understand it. So
Things failing. All right. So next week, we're going to cut down on the general news. We're going to have a good hot take for you. It's going to be a good one. Trust me.
Yep.
And we're going to do Pulumi and Cube Shark.
you got it.
We're going to do a dual demo. It's going to be demo time next week.
Absolutely. All right. Well, apologies. What a disaster. What a disastrous finish.
No worries. Yeah. Again, thanks for joining. That's C9K in the streets, Clusterfuck in the sheets. I'm joined by my co-host, Steve Giguere, and we might be live together next week. Who knows? We'll see what's going to happen. But
Yeah, we'll make it happen.
Join and see you next Friday.